Story 1. I live in the Blue Mountains, west of Sydney. The Blue Mountains, if you did not know, are part of the Great Dividing Range and are a national park. We are literally surrounded by fires from north to south. At any moment, the wind could change and wipe out potentially hundreds of homes, mine included. We have never seen anything this large before. Fires are normal for us, but the scale of these fires is unprecedented. I want to thank the rest of the world for their generosity at this time. It is truly heartwarming to see so many people offer support from all corners of the globe. Peace be with you, and I hope the rain comes our way. Story 2. Let's not forget the 1.25 billion or more animals that have been killed and the many more that are injured and losing their habitat. Story 3. Remember that the firefighters fighting the bushfires are not full-time firefighters. They have jobs such as accountants, information technology professionals, and other occupations, and they do this as volunteers. They use their annual leave to fight the fires or, if they have an understanding boss, take leave without pay. I tip my hat to anyone who does this. Story 4. It is weird being in a town at the center of international news coverage. We have all been walking around town, not knowing what day it is or where we are meant to be. I spent almost a full 24 hours knowing that my dad was defending his property, but not knowing whether he was okay. I spent New Year's Eve without power, internet, water, or phone reception. Every road to our north and south was closed due to fire. We were hearing of people we knew driving their cars into the lake to escape. I passed midnight in my car with the national broadcaster playing, eating a Christmas cookie and drinking warm white wine. I heard the radio announce a man had died a few kilometers to my north. Dad was a few kilometers to my north. We turned on the barbecue the next day to cook meat that was going bad quickly. I had his Uda at our place. He had already evacuated his valuables. We had the door open and the national broadcaster on. My dad walked up and made a snide remark about leaving his car idling. His eyes were really blue and I could tell he had been crying. He never cries, but at least he wasn't dead. And the farm had been saved. He stopped it with a rake. Thousands upon thousands of tourists were fleeing the town by car. One woman had been in her car since 6:30. It was 4:30 the next morning by the time they moved. 22 hours, not including the 2 additional hours she had to travel before reaching her destination. It is usually a 3-hour trip. Then, later that week, Dad came to our house for the day because we had power back. He got a call in the afternoon asking if he could come back home because the farm was on fire again. The roads were blocked and he was stuck. He almost drove through a creek. In his trot-eye van trying to get there despite my pleas. It was about 8 hours of not knowing if the property would be okay. During that time, fires flared up on 2 sides of my own house, so we bounced between hosing my yard and worrying about the farm. Just after midnight, an old neighbor of Dad's stopped in and told us the house had been saved. We had a cup of tea and talked for an hour about what had just happened that week. In comparison, we got off so easy, but it was still the scariest week of my life. Usually my town is buzzing with tourists at this time of year. While it is nice to get a parking spot in town, the ghostly quietness is choking our small businesses. Story 5. I hope this isn't a stupid or ignorant question, but how did these start? Do we know? Story 6. As a Californian, I thought our wildfires were bad, but this is nothing compared to Australia. It is the most apocalyptic thing I have seen. Story 7. As an Australian, I want to thank the international community for acknowledging the extent of this crisis and for their ongoing support. I am not directly affected by the fires, but it is amazing to see complete strangers around the world donate to charities and send firefighters to help people and animals during this time. From the bottom of my heart, thank you. Edit. Thank you for all the comments and support. I agree that our government should be doing more, and it is a shame that we have to resort to asking for help. I hope our government is held accountable. As others have said, many countries are facing devastating floods and other disasters due to climate change. Please let us make an effort to be better and to challenge those in power to act. Climate change is real. We have one planet. Let us take care of it. Story 8. The international support during these fires has been fantastic, and I would like to send my thanks to those who have contributed in any way. It means so much. The air quality in my town has worsened over the past few days and the fires have been escalating. There has been a lot of burnt leaves and bark falling this month. It is definitely concerning. I would like to remind all Australian drivers and vehicle owners to do a basic vehicle checklist to give yourself the best chance of making it out if you need to evacuate. You can do most of these things right now. 1. Make sure you have at least half a tank of fuel at all times. 2. Keep at least 4 liters of water in a container in your car at all times. 3. Check the coolant level in your radiator if possible. The coolant level should be no more than a couple of centimeters below the coolant fill neck. If your coolant level is low and you do not have premix coolant on hand, you can use tap or hose water in an emergency. 4. Check tire pressure and fill to the recommended pressure. This is usually listed on the door sill or in your vehicle owner's manual. You can refill tires at most petrol stations. 5. Make sure your spare tire is fully inflated and holds air. 6. Make sure your washer fluid is full. This will help with ash and debris in an emergency. 7. Check headlights, indicators, and taillights, and replace any blown bulbs if possible. 8. Make sure all windows on your vehicle are clean. Remove bird droppings, mud, and so on. You want as much visibility as possible in heavy smoke. 9. Make sure all mirrors are as clean as possible for the same reason. 10. Make sure windscreen wiper blades work adequately or replace them. Supercheap Auto has wipers for most common vehicles and can fit them if needed. 11. Buy jumper cables for your vehicle if possible. This might help you or others if a battery develops issues. A Reddit user suggested also buying a jump pack, which is good advice. Most jump packs can also charge phones or other devices via universal serial bus and often include a torch, which is handy in an emergency. 12. Keep a small first aid kit in your car at all times. 13. Keep duct tape, a sharp knife or razor blades, zip ties, rope, and basic Phillips and flathead screwdrivers if possible. These are generally good to have in your car. Please do not overlook these items. The majority of them can be done at little to no cost and might save you in an evacuation. Good luck to everybody. Hopefully we see some rain today. Thank you to everyone who supported this post and helped it gain more visibility. It is much appreciated. Story 9. I work about 5 minutes from the fires, and both my grandparents and my great-grandfather live very close by. My great-grandfather, who is 92, has been evacuated 3 times, and we are worried that if the fire actually comes through, he might be asleep or choose to ignore evacuation orders and stay at home. A fire started at a neighboring property near my work. 3 fire trucks came and attempted to control a sizable blaze. It makes things much more real when it is right on your doorstep. My livelihood and my family are in danger, and the speed at which these fires move means you can go out for dinner one night and come home to nothing but ashes. My family and my employer are on high alert. I do not know how our lives might change, but even though we are worried, we are lucky compared with many who are much worse off. These last few months have been very scary. Story 10. My thoughts are with Australians experiencing this awful event who cannot leave their homes because of poor air quality. My special thoughts are with those who have lost someone, lost their homes, or were evacuated. It must feel like a nightmare, and I hope things return to normal soon. Lots of love from France. Do not give up, everyone. Story 11. Do you think tourism to Australia is helpful or hurtful? I was planning to visit Australia in June because I have always wanted to go, and I am thinking they could probably really use the tourism dollars after this disaster. But maybe I should wait longer? Story 12. One of the most surreal events I experienced as a volunteer with the Rural Fire Service in the Blue Mountains was the Evans Lookout fire at Blackheath. The temperature was about 40 degrees Celsius, and we could see the fire moving through the bush toward us as we carried out a backburn. This happened after 3 helicopters and a large air tanker had been attacking it for several hours. Even though the wind was pushing the backburn away from us, the radiant heat was so intense that it ignited leaf litter on the ground 3 meters away and bushes on the opposite side of the fire trail. While one crew member worked on the bushes that had caught fire, I ran up and down the trail stamping out spot fires. Our protective gear burned through. Story 13. I used to play video games with a man from Australia. We spent thousands of hours playing together, and I recently reconnected with him. He lost his house to the fires. It breaks my heart to know how badly the government allowed the fires to get. He lost countless personal, priceless items, including his Xbox 360 gaming console that we spent so much time playing on. I hope enough will be done to stop these fires as quickly as possible so no one else has to go through what my friend did. Story 14. Thank you for this. My thoughts go out to everyone in Australia and to the koalas, kangaroos, and other animals affected. The photos and videos showing their suffering are very sad. Story 15. I used to live in Bateman's Bay and Mogo as a child. On New Year's Eve and New Year's Day, I spent the whole day crying or in a rage. Watching the place I loved burn devastated me. I have trouble remembering bits of my childhood, but I will always remember living only 5 minutes away from the most beautiful beaches, swimming under a bridge, and now having a permanent scar as a reminder, our local fish and chip shop where I always picked out the ring lolly, and a shop I called the ferry shop. Those coastal areas were quite touristy, and I think that shop is gone now. At least Mogo Zoo was evacuated. I am tired and I am scared and I am safe, but I know so many others are not. I am angry because the bare minimum was not done by state or federal governments and we have lost so much. Children growing up without their dads, elderly people dying because they could not escape, a father and son caught in the blaze, animals dying by the hundreds of millions if not billions, and a prime minister who had the nerve to smirk in people's faces when they were trying to convey their grief. Sorry for the rambling. I have just been so angry and upset. Edit. I have comments on other threads if anyone is interested in donating to help wildlife caught in the fires. Or should I say fire? It has merged into one. Fuck. Story 16. If someone has done the research, that will save me some time. Which of these agencies or another directs the greatest percentage of donations to relief or assistance? Story 17. This will probably get buried. For anyone living in Denver, my friends and I are organizing a charity music event to support those affected by the fires in Australia. Story 18. As an Australian, I just want to say thank you to everyone who has donated, helped, and supported. It is truly touching to see the local and international support. Many of my closest friends live in the countryside, in the heart of the fires, and they have already lost so much. It is devastating and incredibly frustrating to see my country burn. This catastrophe could have been minimized from the start, but due to inept leadership, it has grown into a tragedy. Story 19. With fires on this scale, is there anything that can be done to fight them? I have heard stories about cinders and burning leaves landing in the middle of Sydney, and I wonder how it is possible to prevent flames from spreading when new fires keep starting. Story 20. The Australian government's lack of proactivity is to blame for this. The Rural Fire Service requested extra funds so they could help prevent the crisis, but Prime Minister Scott Morrison flatly rejected the request. The government's incompetence has affected millions in Australia and New Zealand. A true leader would not have walked away after a photo opportunity in a distressed community. Story 21. I live in Melbourne, far from the bushfires. Over the last few days we had rain, especially yesterday. I thought rain was good, but the news says it can sometimes worsen fires. Why? I am confused. Does rainwater help put bushfires out? Story 22. We are in one of the areas bordering one of the larger fires in Victoria. Luckily, no lives were lost and there was only minimal property damage where we are. The smoke impact has been extreme at times, and we left for Melbourne last weekend because my wife and children were both suffering asthma attacks. We returned 2 days later when the smoke had eased a bit. It was still at hazardous levels, but smoke was expected to remain very high for weeks and we could not stay away that long. Yesterday we evacuated again, this time to an army barracks a short drive away where they had accommodation and were happy for people to bring pets. We have been put up in a dorm with 4 beds, air conditioning, a bathroom, and even a television. Much better conditions than we were expecting. There are meals at the mess 3 times a day, a swimming pool and other facilities available for evacuees. As it is not an operational base, it is a lot more relaxed than we expected. Unfortunately, we were hit with a couple of unforeseen events. A grass fire nearby put the barracks on alert, and this coincided with us losing power with no backup power other than emergency lighting. The defense personnel are doing an amazing job under difficult circumstances. It is clear that evacuations of this scale were not fully planned for, but they are managing well. I expect that by next fire season there will be plans and processes in place for running defense facilities as relief centers. Hopefully we will be back home in the next day or two when conditions improve. If you want to help by donating funds or volunteering, please note there has been a deluge of donated items, much more than is immediately needed, which has required resources to be diverted to managing donations rather than addressing more pressing needs. Story 23. Australians and others, I implore you to sear this memory into your minds and do not forget. Even when the fires are over, we have lost so much and will need a great deal of support to rebuild. In the age of social media, it is easy to move on when disasters are not immediate, but recovery will take years. Once things have settled, visit a small town and spend your money there. There is an initiative called Empty Esky that hits the nail on the head. The idea is to take your empty esky, an insulated box used to keep food and drinks cold when camping, visit affected towns, and spend your money at local businesses. Visit local butchers, markets, and sweet shops, and buy fudge for every child you know. Volunteer your time and find a local community that is planting trees. If there is interest, I will start compiling information about local tree planting groups. Follow Empty Esky on Instagram and keep an eye out for local businesses within driving distance that need support. Thank you. Story 24. Thank you for this post. I am in Victoria, where the East Coast has gone up in flames, but I am on the other side of Melbourne and therefore safe. The main impact for me has been on my mental health. We are affected by haze, and because we have a small baby, I have been housebound. What I want you to know is that the majority of our firefighters are volunteers. They are giving up so much to fight the fires. In all honesty, the whole situation is a clusterfuck. Story 25. What frustrates me is that Kevin Rudd, in 2007, released a report prepared by scientists and researchers saying that bushfires would get worse each year, and that the effects would be visible by 2020. They were bang on the money, and if I'm not mistaken, the authorities even told the government that the bushfires would be worse than we had ever seen that year, and the government decided, yeah, nah, she'll be right. It's depressing to see all the smoke everywhere. The smell of smoke is almost always present now. I haven't had a breath of truly fresh air in a while, the kind that cools all the way to the lungs. Unless action is taken, this will become the new normal and will only get worse. Story 26. In addition to human fatalities and the destruction of homes and buildings, an estimated 780 million animals have died in the fires. Story 27. My grandparents live in Australia, and I am really worried about them. Story 28. A couple of questions from an uninformed American. 1. How has climate change precipitated these fires? 2. Are fires like this, at this scale, common for the region? Story 29. What percentage of green areas has this fire consumed so far? Story 30. I live in Canberra, the capital of Australia. No bushfires are burning here yet, but they are close by and have been blanketing our city with thick toxic smoke for about a month. It has been awful. The air quality has at times been several thousand times above hazardous levels and at other times within the hazardous range. I had to buy air purifiers, which I am fortunate to be able to afford, and seal every window, vent, and door except one to keep the smoke out. My toddler has been unable to play outside for weeks. Class P2 respirator. Masks, which use a particulate filter rated Class 2, are sold out across the city, as are most air purifiers. We have also had heatwave conditions with days above 40 degrees Celsius, and many people in this city have evaporative cooling systems that cannot be used during the smoke because they draw the smoke in. Everything tastes and smells of smoke. A fine layer of ash covers everything, and last night it was literally raining ash. It feels like the end of the world. People are anxious and the huge fires are edging closer to the city. Story 31. This should be a crisis. This could happen somewhere else and could lead to human extinction. I do not understand why we do not treat our precious Earth better. We will be responsible for our own extinction. Story 32. I am overwhelmed by the outpouring of love from not only the Australian people, but also people around the world. I am from a small town located not far from the bushfires, and our community has banded together like never before. Volunteer firefighters and donations of clothing, food, water, shelter, stockyards, time and care are at unprecedented levels. In the state of Victoria, our Premier has asked for no more donations of food, clothing, and amenities because we have already provided an unprecedented volume. It is heartwarming to know the community has our back. My uncle lost his home in the fires, and it is comforting to know that with time things will be okay due to the immense generosity of Australia and people worldwide. Thank you. Story 33. I turn on the television and the country is on fire. We are angry at our Prime Minister. We are struggling and we need help. What you do not know is how scared I am to go to sleep, that I might wake up and have to leave at 3 in the morning with nothing but the clothes I have on. We wet our house almost daily. We revise our evacuation plan over dinner. We inhale more smoke over a 4-month period than I have in my entire life. We put our chickens in the bathroom because outside is too hot. We take 30-second showers every 2 to 3 days because water is so sparse. We drink only when we must. We wash dishes with the same water repeatedly. Every 2 hours or so we go outside to check for smoke. I have been living out of a duffel bag in case we have to leave. We do not leave the house because it is too hot outside and we cannot breathe properly. Our neighbors' cows are dying and the vines are drying up. 2 towns 10 kilometers from us were doused with water after burning for a few days. We are the lucky ones. People are dying. Firefighters are dying. Animals are dying. The numbers keep rising because the fires are so severe. As of 4 hours ago, 2 fire fronts on the New South Wales and Victoria border merged and created a 600,000-hectare bushfire, about 2,316 square miles, 7 times the size of Singapore. We need your help. Please, for the love of God, help us. This is no longer about politics. It is about survival. I hope everyone currently under threat stays as safe as possible and has a fire plan. We will get through this even if we come out with a country of nothing but ash. Story 34. Please do not donate to the Australian Red Cross or St. Vincent's. The Australian Red Cross has already received over 30 million Australian dollars in donations and has offered 5,000 Australian dollars to each person who has lost their home. It is notorious for losing money and keeping 20 to 30% of donations for administrative fees. As for St. Vincent's, they are a racist, homophobic group that seek to push their own agenda on those who need help. Please consider donating directly to wildlife organizations or state funds for Victoria and New South Wales. I am Australian. Story 35. I can skip drinking at the bar tonight. I will donate the money instead. Story 36. Many times we have had to confine ourselves to our room because the smoke and heat are so bad. The fire is getting closer every day. Story 37. I am a soldier deployed to East Gippsland, Victoria, to help with the bushfires. Ask me anything. Story 38. I live in New South Wales, and some parts here have extremely bad air quality. Sydney once had an air quality level 11 times the hazardous limit, equivalent to smoking about 30 packs of cigarettes per day, if I recall correctly. Some children have taken to busking in the streets to raise money from bushfire relief funds. That is when you know that things are bad. Our Prime Minister, who is like a president, snuck off to Hawaii with his family in December last year while the country was burning. Earlier this month, he forced a woman to shake his hand, and that has been reported in the news. I truly hope our courageous firefighters are safe as they battle the bushfires. Story 39. As an Australian, I really appreciate you spreading awareness and encouraging donations. This country that many call home is at risk. Not only are humans affected, but also wildlife. Thank you. You are an amazing person for standing up to help. Story 40. As an Australian, the best way you can help is to prevent this from happening again. Do everything you can to remove climate deniers from power and support candidates with concrete plans to address the climate crisis. If you are a citizen of the United States, the most effective thing you can do is vote for Bernie Sanders in the upcoming primaries in general election. The second best action is to boycott News Corporation and similar publications. Their falsehoods and deceptions are responsible for much of the current inaction on climate policy in Australia and elsewhere. Sharing these messages and taking these actions gives us the best chance to reverse the dangerous path the world has followed over the past 2 decades. Story 41. I have put together a timeline of events for those who have not kept up. This is not comprehensive but should give a sense of how severe the situation was. I am also maintaining a gallery of images from the fires and will update it periodically to show what it was like for those on the front line. October. The first major fires started, primarily concentrated around the border between New South Wales and Victoria, the Blue Mountains, west of Sydney, and northern New South Wales. The Gospers Mountain Fire, ignited by lightning on October 26th, became the most serious of these. Gospers Mountain Fire. The Gospers Mountain Fire became the most serious of the October ignitions. November 8th. The Gospers Mountain Fire was more than 10,000 hectares in size. November 12th. The fire began to generate its own local weather, creating a dry thunderstorm that ignited more spot fires ahead of the main blaze. 13 to 20 November. The fire burned approximately 140,000 hectares. December 4th. The fire covered approximately 231,000 hectares. December 6th. The fire merged with 2 other blazes, forming a fire front approximately 60 kilometers long. December 10th. Approximately 320,000 hectares had been burned. December 20th. The fire covered approximately 440,000 hectares and was the largest single ignition fire in Australian history. Elsewhere, early December, Sydney's air quality was the worst in the world as smoke from fires was carried into the city by wind. A fire in Sydney's southwest destroyed homes and claimed lives. The Curwen Fire on the south coast reached approximately 50,000 hectares. The North Black Range Fire near Canberra reached approximately 40,000 hectares. 2 fires in Gippsland, Victoria, were out of control with no immediate signs of improvement. Mid-December, December 11th, around 20,000 protesters marched in Sydney over perceived government inaction on climate change. 30 new spot fires were ignited across New South Wales. 17 to 19 December. These 3 days were officially the hottest on record in Australia by national average temperature. Fires in southwest New South Wales continued to spread. 2 Rural Fire Service volunteer firefighters, Geoffrey Keaton and Andrew O'Dwyer, were killed and 3 others were hospitalized while fighting the blazes. Prime Minister Scott Morrison left the country for a family holiday to Hawaii and returned a few days later following vocal criticism. Late December, the Gippsland fires remained out of control and began generating their own weather. December 23rd. Melbourne was covered in smoke as winds carried it from fires burning near the border. Christmas Day, 2,000 firefighters were deployed. After Christmas, fire spread to the Bega Valley. 5 separate fires, 3 of which merged, combined to cover approximately 260,000 hectares. December 30th. Another Rural Fire Service firefighter, Sam McPaul, was killed when a fire tornado flipped the 10 to 12-ton truck he was in onto its roof. New Year's Eve. The Gippsland fires continued to spread and covered more than 200,000 hectares. Residents of Malakotta were stranded on the beach as they fled the fires. The town was in pitch darkness by mid-morning as smoke blacked out the sky. More than 100 fires burned across New South Wales, and a father and son, Robert Salway, 63, and Patrick Salway, 27, were killed attempting to defend their property. January. States of emergency were declared in New South Wales and Victoria. The Royal Australian Navy was called in to evacuate people from Malakotta. The town of Batlow in New South Wales was evacuated. Flames destroyed the old hospital, blew up the petrol station, and destroyed homes. Fires on Kangaroo Island were out of control and claimed 2 lives. Prime Minister Scott Morrison, while talking to locals, expressed relief that no one had died, despite 2 people having died. Summary. So far the fires burned more than 10 million hectares nationally and claimed 27 lives. Hundreds of homes were lost, and towns were left without power and clean water. Public criticism of the Prime Minister included going on holiday in mid-December, forcing people to shake his hand during his crisis public relations tour of affected areas, responding to a firefighter who said they had not eaten in a day by saying he would let them get back to work, expressing relief to locals that no one had died in the Kangaroo Island fires, despite 2 people having died. A rural fire service firefighter expressed the prevailing sentiment toward the Prime Minister. Context and causes. Bushfires are a normal part of the Australian environment, but the number and intensity of these fires were not typical. This was a direct result of prolonged drought combined with longer bushfire seasons in recent years, which reduced the capacity of firefighters to take preventative action. Longer bushfire seasons have been attributed to climate change and were predicted more than a decade earlier. Critics argued that, despite repeated warnings from fire officials, prevention policies were not implemented and that funding at the state level had been cut. Conservative estimates put the number of animals impacted at 500 million. The real number could exceed 1 billion. Outlook. This season was already the worst in decades and the fire season still had months to run. January and February are often worse than December for fire danger, so improvement was not expected immediately. At that stage, there was little that could be done beyond trying to limit damage and loss of life and waiting until the season ended. I am maintaining a collection of images that show the severity of the fires for those on the front line. Story 42. Raising and spreading awareness. Talk to your friends, family, neighbors, and random strangers on the street. Keep it in the news. Don't let it become a 24-hour news cycle and be forgotten. This has been ongoing for a while and is not slowing down. As an American living on the other side of the globe, I have not stopped talking about it, even when people get annoyed. Fine by me. Let's keep it up. Reddit users. Story 43. How has this changed Australians' attitudes toward the climate and the environment? Much of this is being attributed to climate change and to other government mismanagement. Will the nation emerge more environmentally focused as a result of the tragedy? Or are people's political views on the matter relatively unchanged? Despite Scott Morrison's reputation suffering, how will his party fare in the future regarding its stance on climate issues? Story 44. Honestly, I do not care how many poor, unfunny memes are posted or how many people are seeking attention. It still spreads the word. Scott Morrison is doing nothing, so outside help is what we need right now. Story 45. How much responsibility do the media outlets owned by Rupert Murdoch bear for the situation? I am not from Australia, and I have heard that his outlets have been strongly opposed to anything related to the climate emergency and to the scientific evidence that it is largely caused by human activity. Do people dislike them for that? Story 46. I'm taking time off between my undergraduate and honors degrees and beginning postgraduate studies in invertebrate biology. We have only recently begun to see media coverage of the massive loss of invertebrate species, most of which are undescribed or understudied. We do not know what the loss of these species will cause, but we know it has the potential to be profoundly destabilizing. Story 47. All right then, people, here we go. I'm one of those Aussies who generally lurks on Reddit and does not post much. These fires, though, make you take stock of your life and actions. There are 2 things we are all really angry and scared about here. 1. The fires, and 2. Our leadership. Regarding the first point, we call our summer fire season for a reason. We regularly have fires in the summer months that cause property loss. Think farms with lots of land, large rural properties, bushland or scrubland. This is a fact of life in Australia outside the major cities where most Australians live. This has produced the largest volunteer firefighting force in the world. Each state has its own force because it falls under the state's responsibility. The state of New South Wales has roughly 70,000 volunteer firefighters in the Rural Fire Service who respond to emergencies like summer bushfires. And in the state of Victoria, the Country Fire Authority has just under 35,000 volunteers. This is separate from the professional coordinators and other support roles that such large organizations require. These volunteers come directly from the communities affected by the fires. It is not uncommon to hear that while a squad defended a house from being overrun, The people who helped defend that property lost their own homes during the same night. Volunteers have been out there since early November at their own expense. This has had a massive effect, with many sacrificing income in the lead up to Christmas and over the new year, as they have mostly depleted personal paid leave or, in some cases, had to temporarily close their small businesses. Some volunteers have been fighting fires without a break for days or weeks at a time. Families report on social media that they go without sufficient food or sleep and are constantly exhausted. Our volunteer force was never intended for this scale and duration of fire. It is stretched so thin it is almost broken. We have lost firefighters this season, 3 that I can recall, and I do not want to find out how many more we may lose before this ends. The scale of fires raging around the country is unprecedented. Experts acknowledge that only major rainfall will extinguish some of these fires. We cannot put out some of these fires without substantial rain. In summary, check the hashtag Australian Fires on Twitter for sources and first-hand accounts. Now to the second point. Our Prime Minister took a holiday while the country was literally on fire. He went overseas to Hawaii, and reporters had to track him down. It was only after the deaths of 2 volunteer firefighters that he returned and faced the cameras. The Prime Minister has repeatedly denied meeting a group of former fire chiefs. Most were retired or close to retirement, who were trying to warn about the risks. This group had been seeking a meeting since March 2019. The experts knew a catastrophic fire season was imminent, but instead of meeting and hearing the evidence, the Prime Minister did not meet with them. There was also a decision about the operational range of aerial firefighting capacity, such as large air tankers, that was rejected roughly 4 years ago by the same governing party. The Prime Minister's response to the crisis has been criticized as slow and ineffective, prompting calls for him to resign or be dismissed. This is our center-right party, the Liberal Party. They have long either denied climate change, spread misinformation that it is not human-caused, or at best shown only token efforts to tackle the issue. There have been CSIRO reports from the Commonwealth Scientific and Industrial Research Organization, the federal government science agency, on climate change for many years going back more than 10 years. Those reports align closely with what we are experiencing now. This is what terrifies us. These are some of the worst fires in Australian history, and our leadership refuses to engage seriously on climate change. The last Prime Minister who took action on climate change was Julia Gillard of the Australian Labor Party, who introduced a carbon pricing mechanism. It was the only policy that brought carbon pollution down. We need help in Australia, and I am not sure where or when it will come. Story 48. A fire came between my town and the next one at the end of last year. A workmate's house burned down this year, and it looks like my best mate may lose their house today. Things are really bad here. Story 49. To all my United States brothers, donate. This is great. I was able to donate $20 but only paid about $14. It feels like we are taking from the economy to help people. Story 50. Donate directly to the New South Wales Rural Fire Service to support your local brigade. Story 51. There are some idiots on this thread who care more about political fuel for their climate change arguments than about the fires themselves. They are telling Australians we brought it on ourselves. Go fuck yourselves, you pieces of shit. Story 52. The inner-city suburbs of Melbourne are far from the front lines, but the smoke is devastating. We now have the worst air quality in the world, and some days the haze is so thick you cannot see more than 100 meters ahead. I feel for those affected by the fires. More than 21 million acres have burned so far, and 54 people had died as of January 17th, including 5 or 6 firefighters. I am proud to see the support the world has shown our nation during this disaster. On behalf of Australia, thank you to everyone who has read about, shared, or contributed resources to help. You are playing a huge role in aiding my country. Story 53. Hello, everyone. I live in Canberra. It is covered in smoke at the moment. Thank you to all the people from other countries who are helping us in this dire moment. If you are going to donate, please give to animal charities. It is devastating for them, and it makes me tear up to think about it. I say this for a political reason too. Our government has purposefully underfunded emergency services, so donating to emergency services is effectively enabling this behavior by our government. The animals really need help and would not ordinarily receive government assistance. People choose to live in the bush, including my family, and accept the risk of losing our homes. To a lesser extent, people choose to fight fires. It is a very noble choice. The animals had no choice in this. Their homes are being destroyed. Do not worry about people here. We will be okay. We have insurance, a welfare state, high taxes, and revenue from mineral exports. Help the animals if you can. I donate to the Wildlife Information, Rescue, and Education Service myself because that is my state's organization, but as far as I know, any of the charities listed in the original post should be a productive use of money. Thank you again. Story 54. Recently, Melbourne, my hometown and the nation's second largest city, has experienced poor air quality. Sometimes I cannot go outside because of asthma caused by smoke. Some people believe that only non-metropolitan areas are affected. While that is partly true, almost every major city experiences significant smoke. Story 55. I am not near the fires, but my family is. They have not been able to leave their house for a week because the smoke is so thick. They are less than 100 kilometers away and are waiting it out because they have been told the fire is not likely to reach them. That does not mean they do not have bags packed and ready by the door in case they need to run and abandon everything. The house backs onto a dry forest, where the kangaroo population had been increasing as many animals fled north. Now you cannot see any because they are dying from smoke inhalation. Direct fire is not the only risk to our animals. My aunt volunteers with the Kangaroo Protection Service and has flown from the other side of the country to help care for some of the many joeys left abandoned and homeless after their mothers left them or died while fleeing. Many are dying from stress, and people are scrambling to find safe places for them. Although I am not close, the smoke still reaches our skies. The city looks foggy in the middle of the day, and the heat is unbearable. The entire country is holding its breath, waiting to see what happens. We are all affected by these fires in some way and want them stopped. Story 56. We have not been affected by the fires directly, but a lot of smoke is covering the town. I am getting married 1 week from today. Every time I feel excited or happy about the wedding, I immediately feel guilty and as if I do not have the right to be happy. It has been a real struggle. I worry about smoke ruining the pictures in the ceremony, and I have to remind myself that, thank God, we are not on fire and we are fortunate. We might have to cancel the wedding if conditions get worse over the next week. I really do not want that to happen. Honestly, even complaining here makes me feel terrible because there are so many people who have it much worse. I just do not know where else to put my thoughts. I feel for everyone directly affected. I cannot imagine what they are going through. I feel stupid for complaining and for being happy. Story 57. Global corporations probably said do not worry about it. The poor will donate and fix the problem. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.